Okay. So I suppose, yeah, we can get started, and if people want to join in later, they can.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gideon Fujiwara. I'm the Associate Professor in History and Coordinator of Asian Studies. And today we're really excited to be able to welcome Sam McGuire. He is the Japan Exchange and Teaching, or JET, Program Coordinator at the Consulate General of Japan office in Calgary. And yeah, we always are grateful that, Sam has been coming to the U of L for years and years now, usually around this time of the year. And he gives us the latest information on the JET program. Wonderful program to be able to travel to Japan, live there and work there. And Sam is a JET alumnus, so he's got personal knowledge of how things are there. So yeah, he'll present to us for a few minutes, and then I know he'll be taking your questions and comments. So yeah, thanks so much, Sam. It's always great to see you, and yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you, Gideon. Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be in touch with the U of L again. So I'm going to do about 40 minutes or so presentation, and I'm going to try and leave some time for questions at the end. So if you guys want to either throw your questions in the chat during or at the end, if you want to jump on the audio and just ask your question verbally, we can do that too. And with that said, I will just do a quick little self-intro. So yes, as Gideon mentioned, I've been coming to the U of L for a few years doing these things, and I was a JET as well, as he mentioned, from 2013 to 2016 in Nagasaki Prefecture, Unzen City. I taught at 1 junior high and 5 elementary schools as a JET participant, and I've been working as JET coordinator at the Consulate General of Japan in Calgary since 2017 in September. So this is my 5th year through the ringer, and it's been a fun experience so far, continues to be so. All right. With that said, I will get my presentation ready, and I will start a screen share in a moment. There it is, share screen. And yeah, I'll just do the whole screen. Okay. And I'm gonna get this going. All right. Can I move this? Okay, hopefully we'll be able to see everything. Right then. So for the 2022 JET program, what is it that you need to know? So we'll start out with the very general outline of what JET is. So Japan Exchange and Teaching Program is an initiative funded by the Japanese government with a twofold goal to promote grassroots internationalization at a local level and improve English language education in Japan. So that's kind of the thing that makes it different from other similar organizations and companies in Japan that do English teaching, because there's lots of them. But JET has, in addition to the English teaching, the cultural exchange focus. And that's one of the really important things to understand about your role as a JET in general, is that you are there not just to teach English, but to share your culture with the locals who would otherwise never get a chance to meet and talk with someone from Canada, in our case. And then also, once you're done and you come back to Canada, or you move on to wherever it is that you're going to go, share what you learned while you were living in Japan with the local people in your communities there and your coworkers there as well. Because just as the average Japanese person is not so knowledgeable about Canada, same goes here. The average Canadian is not so knowledgeable about what real life in Japan is like. We know about things like history and anime and manga, but that's kind of about it for most people. So it's just as valuable for people to come back and share what their personal experiences were in Japan as well, the good and the bad, because that gives people a more realistic sense of Japan. And that is the second piece of the whole JET program. And it's unfortunately something that some former JETs tend to not really think about very much. And so the hope, the goal is that you go and you do JET and you share Canadian culture with the locals there, and then you come back and you share what you learned of Japanese culture with the people that you come back to as well, and you keep that Japan connection alive. And that's the whole cultural exchange thing. It doesn't just stop once you get on the plane and leave from wherever you leave from in Japan. Moving on, so it was established in 1987. Canada sent our first participants in 88. As of July 1st, 2019, there are over 5,700 people from 57 countries, and about 550 of those are Canadians, and we tend to try and maintain those numbers. Obviously, those stats are kind of old because of the recent pandemic thing. Things fluctuated quite a bit, but we're getting back on track now, which is good. So hopefully we'll have some new information for you later on about that if you're curious about those sorts of stats. The way it's run and organized is locally in Japan. The Council of Local Authorities for International Relations, or CLAIR, handles the current JET participants and maintaining and running the program in Japan. And then overseas at the various consulates and embassies of Japan, which are under the umbrella of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or MOFA, they're the ones that carry out the recruitment and also after JET contact with alumni as well. So people like myself, working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, handles the front end and back end of the whole JET experience. So for those of you that are interested in applying, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are kind of the most important points. So obviously a strong interest in the language and culture of Japan. That is actually important. If you would be just as happy teaching in China or Spain or Germany or wherever, then we kind of wonder, like, okay, so why JET then? You know, what's the deal? And then these next two are the only hardpoint requirements. One is you have to be a university graduate. So you have to have a bachelor's degree or higher obtained at a Canadian university by the time you're departing. So if you're in fourth year, you can still apply. You get yourself a letter of expected graduation from the Office of the Registrar. That's what it is in most universities. And that will basically say, this person has completed this many courses and has this many credits. And if they complete such and such courses, they will be eligible to graduate in this month of this year. And that'll be fine for the application process. And then if you get the interview and you're successful at the interview, and we need more paperwork from you, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but then just later, once you actually get your parchment, then you would just provide us a copy of that to take the place of the letter. Is how that works. And like I say, the other hardpoint requirement is a Canadian citizen. So you have to be a citizen of the country to which you apply. That doesn't mean that if you're not a Canadian citizen, you can't apply. If you're an American citizen or British citizen, you would just need to apply to JET through a Japanese embassy or consulate, basically a diplomatic mission in the country that you have citizenship with. And there's 57 countries, so there's a good chance just about everyone should be able to apply. Obviously, excellent English skills, both spoken and written, especially if you're going to be the ALT, assistant language teacher, and ability to adapt to working in Japan, because it's quite different, as you may imagine, from living here. Different language, different culture, different climate, different just about everything. You can't have previously done the program for more than 5 years. So if you've done 3 years, came back, 2 years, came back, you wouldn't be able to apply again, because we want to give other people a chance to do it. But it's, you know, we understand it's a great experience, but, you know, let some other people have a try. You can't have declined a position in the previous year, and specifically after receiving placement. So the way it works is you apply, and if, for those of you who get the interview, then you go for the interview, that you're successful at the interview, And then a few months later, you're given your placement. Here's where you'll be living in Japan. If after that point you withdraw, then there's that 1 year waiting period, because when people withdraw at that point, it causes a whole bunch of trouble on both sides, a whole bunch of extra work that we need to do because we have to completely throw out some information for the person that withdrew and then contact someone from the alternate or waiting list, basically, and start the process with them over again. And not completely from scratch, but still we have to redo a lot of things, and we want to discourage that kind of flip-flopping. So that's why that's there. Obviously, if you have to withdraw because of a health-related reason or some other humanitarian grounds, like your family member is sick or something like that, and you have to stay to take care of them, we completely understand. In those cases, we'll make a note of that. And so if you have to withdraw, but they want to apply again right away for the following year, usually those cases are permitted to, the applications are accepted. You got to go through the whole process again of applying, but that's the exception. And obviously, yeah, like I mentioned before, keeping the Japan connection alive even after you're done being an official participant. Health-related info. This is something I put in new just from the experiences I've had working with people over the years and things that have come up. So on the application form, there is a section of it called Self-Report of Medical Conditions. My advice, be upfront, be clear, be consistent. Now, what does this mean? This means if you have some kind of condition that requires medication or treatment, then you need to get a statement of physician. This is another additional supplementary document signed by a doctor detailing your conditions. What's the condition? What medication do you take for it? Dosage, frequency, how often do you need to be seen for treatment or checkups, that sort of thing. Then, if you're successful after the interviews, later on, there's more paperwork to do. And one of these documents that we will ask you to take care of is something called a certificate of health. This is another similar but more detailed health check form. And on that form, there is a section called past history. This is where the doctor writes down conditions that you have had in the past or still have or anything like that. If something appears on the certificate of health that was not mentioned in your self-report of medical conditions and statement of physician at the time of application, when that gets submitted to head office, that raises some eyebrows. Why is this on the certificate of health when it wasn't mentioned on the statement of physician? Then they come back to me and say, find out the details that I mentioned. Do they take meds? Do they need treatment? Do they need this and that? And then get that detailed information and submit a new statement of physician as soon as possible. And also, the more important question they always have is find out from the person why they didn't say so at first. Now, if it's a new condition that developed in the time between you submitting your application and being selected as a shortlist candidate or a successful candidate, then okay, that totally makes sense. No issue there. Just let us know what was the date that this was diagnosed and so on and so forth. All right, no problem. But if it's something that you knew about before, but you didn't say anything, then a little bit more explanation is going to be required. And usually the things that I tend to run into is, oh, well, I had the surgery because I was in an accident 10 years ago and I was on painkilling meds for a little while and then I recovered and then it's done. And it doesn't really affect me. I don't need meds or treatment. So I didn't think I needed to mention it at the time of application. And okay, I guess, yeah, because it's not really going to affect you, that's a convincing argument. But still, in that case, if it's an old thing that doesn't affect you anymore, or if maybe it's an ongoing condition, but it doesn't affect you, you don't need meds, you don't need treatment, and you don't say anything about it on your self-report and statement of physician, then I would ask the doctor to not write anything about it on your certificate of health either, because then, if it doesn't affect you, then there's no point to say anything. Now, that may seem a bit shady, and if you're not comfortable doing that, then my suggestion is mention it on the self-report medical conditions, get the statement of physician, have it filled out, explain that, yes, I had this condition or I have this condition, but I don't need any meds and I don't need any treatment. Because that way, when you get your certificate of health filled out and the past history section comes up and the doctor writes it down just to be thorough, as they say, it'll match up. Oh yeah, they have this condition on the certificate of health that was mentioned at their application. Okay, no problem. This is just an extra thing I added because I've run into it a number of times and it always causes extra headache and such. Okay, and well, one last thing I'll say about health-related info. Some people are hesitant to explain about it because they worry that, oh, if I say that, maybe they won't pick me or anything. It's fine if you have a health condition and even if you need meds or treatment, just be aware that some of those meds might not be available in Japan or they might not be permitted to take in Japan. You may need to look into using alternative to it. And or just, do you have an effective strategy for handling it so that you can continue your daily life and continue functioning without it interfering too much? If you do, no problem. It's just because the issue is going to Japan and living and working in their culture is psychologically, physiologically, and physically stressful. And it can exacerbate certain issues. So if you have an effective strategy for handling it, no problem. So give that some thought when you apply. All right, so what are the roles? There's two roles Canadians can apply for. One is the ALT. This is 90% of the roles, probably what most of you are applying for. You'll be working at an elementary, junior high, or high school. And you could have 6 schools like I did. You could have 10 schools. You could have 1 school. You could be working with another ALT, or you could be the only ALT. It really depends on your situation. You will be employed by a BOE, Board of Education, and you'll go around visiting your different schools. This organization that you're seeing here tends to be usually elementary and junior high, and then high school. So if you're a municipal ALT, then you're working at typically those first 2. And then if you're a prefectural ALT, you tend to be working at 1 or more high schools. And they'll give you a schedule so you know which schools you need to be at when. What you do is team teaching. So kind of like the photo you see there, that's at an elementary school. So you've got the homeroom teacher and you're working with the teacher. Same deal at the junior high and high school. There's a dedicated English teacher that you're working with, and how much they ask you to do will vary quite a bit. Some of them will just want you to do the first 5 minutes of class warming up the kids. Others will give you the first half. Others will say you do the last 10 minutes. Others might allow you to take the whole class and almost completely run it yourself. It just totally depends on that teacher. So it's really important to talk with them early and find out how they like to do their work. Also, as an ALT, you may be asked to help run foreign language clubs, help with speech contests over the summer, and assist with other school activities. One of my favorites was the Undokai, or the sports day. A lot of fun on the weekend, just silly sports games like inflate a balloon, run out to a chair, sit on it and pop it, and then run back, and then next person goes. Just silly, fun sports games. It's a lot of fun, especially at the elementaries. Okay, the CIR, Coordinator for International Relations. So this is about 10% of JETs. You're posted in government offices, so city offices, town offices, prefecture offices, and that sort of thing. This one does require a high level of Japanese ability, like a professional level, roughly equivalent to JLPT N2. If people are curious, you can just Google JLPT N2 and look at some practice questions, and that'll give you an idea of the level you need to have. Because what you're doing is all of this that I'm about to tell you is you're doing all of this in Japanese, helping to organize international exchange projects, initiating internationalization projects in the community, planning community activities, making presentations about your home country, doing language classes, translating or interpreting for either foreign visiting dignitaries or official documents or tourism documents, writing and editing newsletters, helping coordinate sister city exchange projects, and so doing some public speaking as well. And I already mentioned assisting foreign diplomats. All of this in Japanese or going back and forth between Japanese and English really quickly. So you can imagine a high level of Japanese. And there is for the CIR, there is a mandatory Japanese evaluation portion of the interview. And for the ALTs, we usually do a Japanese evaluation as well, but it's not a mandatory part. Like we will offer you, do you want to take the evaluation or not? And you don't have to. I'd recommend everyone give it a shot, even if all you can say is, my name is, and I'm from Canada, and I like cats, if that's all you can say in Japanese. Anything that you can do helps strengthen your application. And if there's no way that it can possibly negatively affect your application, even if you don't do very well on the optional Japanese evaluation portion. So I strongly encourage everyone to give it a shot, start learning whatever Japanese you can, and just try it, because it's going to be helpful for you. Even though for the ALT, you don't need any Japanese at all, outside of the classroom, you'll be able to get more out of your experience if you can understand some Japanese. Okay, more generally. So this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the things that we do tend to look for more than others. So for adaptability and initiative, especially in the ALT role, we want the idea is not that you wait for someone to tell you what to do, but you start looking at the textbooks and you start coming up with your own ideas, and then you bring it to your JTE, Japanese teacher of English, and you say, okay, I looked at the textbook and I think maybe we could try this activity. Do you think that's good? Or do you have some feedback? They might give you some critiques. As a CIR, they'll want you to come up with creative ideas to help promote internationalization. Like, well, we always run this event, but it never gets a lot of people. And they're hoping that you come up with something new to engage people and get them to learn about other countries. Then creativity and humor, these kind of go together as well, especially as the ALT, with CIR as well. But for the ALT, for the kids in Japan, learning English is not this, ooh, fun, exotic kind of thing. It's just another subject. It's, oh, now we have to study English, and they're not excited about it. So the hope is that you make learning English fun. So you come up with these different new activities, and you're able to laugh at yourself a little bit and be a little bit silly, kind of related to humility as well. But just the idea that you're having fun with it. And so the kids are just playing this fun game, but really they're actually also learning English. Desire to learn about Japanese language and culture, obviously, again, similar to what I mentioned before, that's it's almost a given, really. Desire to teach, that's the thing. You don't have to be an education major. As long as you're at least interested in giving it a shot, then that's good enough. You're going to put an earnest, honest effort and a try to seeing if teaching is for you, or if you really like teaching, but that's got to be at least part of your motivation. Patience and humility, especially as an ALT, and I can speak from my own personal experience, your first few lessons, there may be one or two that are kind of a flop, kind of mediocre at best. And the idea is you just, okay, well, this worked, this didn't, throw out what doesn't work, keep what does, try something new, be patient with yourself, understand that, well, okay, I'm trying this new thing. It might work with these kids, maybe not with those ones. Don't take it too personally, just learn. And you do get the hang of it. It started out in my first year, I needed an hour of prep time for every hour of class time. But then it got to the point where I could throw together a lesson in 5 minutes that I knew for sure would work with any of my students at any of my schools. So it gets easier the more you do it. It's a skill. And you have to have that patience for yourself that, okay, it might take a little bit. I'm not going to be good at it right away, but if you keep working at it, you will get there. Okay, more detailed things. What type of working conditions? You could be in urban, semi-urban, or rural. I should say up front that most jets are placed in rural areas. So be aware of that. Maybe the only English-speaking non-Japanese person in the town. There's probably at least a few other ALTs in most situations, but still keep that in mind. 1 year contract with your contracting organization. So the BOE or city office in Japan. You are not employed by the JET program. You are not employed by Claire. Keep that in mind. So with regard to reference letters and such that you want to get before for your next job, get them before you leave. It is really hard to track down a given teacher or supervisor after you've come back to Canada. The contract can be renewed up to a maximum of 5 years. So usually in December or so, if BOE is happy with what you're doing and you're happy there, when they give you the form that says, or if they're happy, they'll give you a form that says, we intend to reappoint you for another year. Do you accept, yes or no? If you say yes, you'll stay in your current role for another year, and this will continue for up to the 5 years. And if you say no, then you start getting ready to go home at the end of your current contract. 35-hour work weeks, typically Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:15, but please look at your specific contract because it may be slightly different in terms of like your start and end time each day. Minimum 10 paid vacation days. I had 20. Then you also have about 15 national holidays. So almost every month you have a long weekend. You also have sick days that you can use. Salary, first year is around 40,000 Canadian, and it goes up each year that you stay on as a JET participant, just by about $1,000 a year, roughly. And that's more than enough to live comfortably. I had rent and a car lease. So every month I was shelling out about 960 Canadian, roughly, and I still had enough money to save up, fly home for Christmas, go out and have fun and travel and stuff in Japan. It's more than enough, so don't worry. You don't have to do Canadian taxes, but you do have to do Japanese taxes. You just have to write a form that says you didn't earn any money in Canada, and your supervisor should help you with that. And then you just pay the regular Japanese taxes, so municipal taxes, health insurance, that sort of thing, because you're living as a resident in Japan. Accommodation, this will vary quite a bit because totally depends on what your CO has set up for you. So in some cases, they have a house that they bought, and that's just what they use for the ALTs. In other cases, they might set you up with an apartment, or it might be something different. It'll totally depend. So you may or may not have rent. I had rent, some people didn't. Be aware that you might need to take some money with you to help you get started. And I'll talk about money in a little bit. But you'll have initial deposits and key money, etc. So be sure to save up a little bit to help you get started financially. Often you'll take over your predecessor's place. So you may inherit appliances and other things. They may want to sell you the car that they were using. You don't have to buy it. In my case, like I said, I had a car lease. All I had to do was sign on the dotted line once I got there. And I liked that because it was a bit more expensive, but that meant repairs were paid for. I just took it into the shop once a month and they took care of everything. No extra fees. I even had my car break down on me once and they had a replacement for me by the end of the day. It was really nice. Okay, support. Speaking of nice things. Of course, you got your supervisor, you got your other jets, you got colleagues and neighbors. If you make those connections as well, you have a jet, which is a peer support group. You have jet hotline, jet coordinators like myself up until the time you go, obviously. Claire has a prefectural advisor. So that's one ALT that they select to take care of all the jets in an area. And then also there are various social media groups, Facebook and Discord and stuff like that, that ALTs just take their own initiative to make. And those are really helpful as well to reach out to people a little bit geographically removed, but still just to be able to talk to someone is nice. I remember also there was even like a sort of a marketplace for jets in my area. If somebody wanted to sell something, that was really handy. I bought some things from other jets while I was there. And then Claire also offers some correspondence courses. So Japanese language courses, interpretation, training courses, linguistics and pedagogy. For the Japanese language courses, these are distance learning. They'll send you textbooks and you do an online test and stuff. For the other ones, you will have to apply for special leave to go take them because they do take place during the regular work week. So please talk to your supervisor about whether or not they can allow you to go and do these things because it does take you out of your regular job for that time. And okay, applications. I should really update this. Applications are open now. They started at the end of September. So you can go to the JET Canada site, which is up there. You can see jetprogram.ca, make your profile and start filling in your application. And this is a list of all the things that you'll need to do. So proof of graduation, we talked about that already. University transcript, statement of physician, if applicable, proof of citizenship. So in most cases, passport, the scan of your passport page would be ideal if you don't.
Oh, Sam, sorry. Have we lost your sound? Or is it just me? Oh,
Yeah, I can't hear anything either.
okay. Jeez.
Okay, how's that?
Oh, yeah, we can hear that. I can hear it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Good. All right. Good thing I paused for a minute. All right, let's get back to it. We're almost done. I'm going to start sharing screen again. Okay. All right. Last home stretch here. Okay. So proof of graduation, university transcript, statement of physician, if applicable, proof of citizenship, passport, scan of your passport page, or birth certificate if you don't have one. If your passport is going to expire soon, please renew it as soon as possible because we need that to be able to issue the JET visa once everything else is taken care of. And then a statement of purpose essay, a 2-page written essay that explains why you want to do the JET program to be a participant. Also, I will mention for this one, it's important to not just mention what you will get out of the experience, but what you can give, what you can bring to the program and to your communities and schools. There are some people that don't mention that, and it doesn't help very much. And then also 2 reference letters. Now, the thing with these is that they don't have to be from employers. They can be, that's the standard, but they can also be from teachers or professors, just anyone that knows you well in the right capacity. So for myself, for example, I asked my piano teacher and my Aikido instructor to write my reference letters because they could speak to my teaching and public speaking qualities and leadership capabilities and general character of, can this person be a good representative? Because that is what you are as a JET participant. You are a representative of your home country and of the JET program. So things that you do reflect back onto us, reflect back on Canada, reflect back on the JET program, reflect back on foreigners as a whole. So you are an unofficial cultural ambassador as well as an ALT or a CIR. And that's really important to remember. You are a公務員 or civil servant. And so you're held to a higher standard of conduct and character than those in other jobs. So not saying that you can't have fun while you're in Japan, not saying that you can't go partying and stuff. I certainly did. But just keep in mind, do it responsibly. If people are doing something really strange and you can find stories, I'm sure. and you'll hear stories of ALTs just going completely off the rails. Don't be one of those, please, because it makes my job and everyone else's job harder. There are people that criticize the JET program and say that it's not a good use of taxpayer money. And every time someone does something bad, it gives them more ammunition to use against us. So please be a good example, so that we can hold them up and say, no, but look at all these other people that are doing really great things. Okay, and I need to go to my last slide. Here we go. Quick overview of the timeline. So from mid-September to mid-November each year, that's the application window. So during this time, you gather all those documents I mentioned, you get your doctor's statement of physician from your doctor's appointment if you need it, put it all together, submit it online to the JET portal, which is run by the Embassy of Japan in Ottawa. That is your point of contact during the applicant stage. So if you have a general question, you can reach out to me at the consulate in Calgary, but your principal point of contact should be the embassy during the applicant status or first stage screening, as we call it. Then early January begins the candidate status. So this is the first stage screening is completed. So you get the first stage screening results notification email to tell you whether or not you're being granted an interview. Then late January, early February or thereabouts, interviews are held at the consulate in Calgary and Winnipeg, although this year it's going to be online again. So I will make sure everyone has what they need to join the interview. And then once that's done, late March, early April, second stage screening results notification goes out. And that's when everyone finds out if they are shortlist, alternate, or disqualified. Disqualified is pretty obvious what that means. It's thanks for trying, but try again next year maybe. Alternate is you're on the waiting list. So it means if a shortlist candidate backs out, that has to withdraw for some reason, we pick from our alternate pool to take their place. And shortlist means congratulations, you got in, we're going to get you ready to go. There's more paperwork to do, however. Shortly after that, so usually about a month later, you get your placement notification. And this is what I mentioned earlier. You are told, here is your JET number and your placement information. You'll be living in such and such prefecture, such and such city. At that point, you are officially a participant. So it means your contracting organization has been told your name, where you're from, and they're expecting you, and they are beginning to prepare various things for you, rental contracts, leases, all that fun stuff, so that it's all ready for you when you arrive. That's why if you withdraw at this point, it causes them trouble because all that work they did is now moot and we have to start over again with someone from the alternate thing. Again, if you really want to, or if you have to withdraw, of course we understand. Just something to keep in mind. And as to why we have the 1-year waiting period if people withdraw at this point. Then from May through June, there's more paperwork. So certificate of health that I talked about before, criminal record check. Standard criminal record check is fine. You don't need the vulnerable sector search if they ask you. Insurance form, that's when you get your JET number. So that just enters you into the insurance for JET participants. June and July is when we have the JET alumni associations run their pre-departure orientation events. These are usually on a one-day event on the weekend. And former JETs talk about their experience in Japan, and they help you prepare for more detailed things like how do you handle rent? What's driving in Japan like? What about grocery shopping? Team teaching things, that sort of stuff. More and more details. That's really, really helpful. I highly recommend you attend these. And the JET alumni volunteers, that's the former JETs who come back, put a lot of work into preparing this for you. So it's really beneficial. And I'll just take a moment to do a quick plug for those. So there are 3 chapters of JET alumni associations in our jurisdiction. JET Alumni Association of Southern Alberta, Northern Alberta, and JET AA Prairies. Prairies handles Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Northern and Southern Alberta, that's pretty self-explanatory. So they do not just the pre-departure orientations, but we rely on them for doing JET info sessions. Also, we have them help us out as a panelist for the JET interviews. So you get to be on the other side of the table, interviewing people. Also, just whenever there's Japan cultural related events like Otafest in Calgary or Animethon in Edmonton or Icon in Winnipeg, we usually have JET alumni there, and we ask them to help us out just by sharing information about JET to people that are going there as well. So there's a lot of interaction and work that you can do together with the consulate or embassy in your area once you come back. And it's also just a great community to join because they've all had the same experience as you. And they will be the only people who continue to want to hear your stories about what it was like when you live in Japan. Because after a while, everyone else is going to be like, oh my God, you're talking about Japan again. JET alumni will never get tired of that because we'll share our stories and it'll be just awesome. Anyway, early September, well, this year it's going to be actually late July is when the departure happens. So that's when everyone that was selected for the shortlist and became participants, we have them attend a orientation run by myself, the consulate, and Nippon Travel Agency to get you ready to go. That's basically the timeline. If you want more information, you can check out the JET Canada website. They have an FAQ section. Also, you can send me an email to either the jet@cl.mofa.go.jp or the mcguire.samuel email address. The mcguire.samuel one is the one I see every day. The JET desk, I can only see that one when I'm in the office, so that's every other day. Also, when I'm in the office, I'm there to take calls as well at the phone number you see. You can also check out JET Canada Twitter. You can check out the Calgary Consulate Facebook page for just more Japanese culture and Japanese cultural events stuff. Like and follow us, and we're trying to do more contests and giveaways and fun things like that. So check us out on Facebook and Twitter, the Consulate General Japan and Calgary pages. And yeah, JET Canada has a Facebook as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop my screen share now because I'm finished with the presentation portion. So, all right, if people want to stick around and ask more detailed questions, I am happy to do that for at least another 10, 15 minutes or so. Or if I could just start sharing anecdotes.
That was great information, Sam, and especially your advice on how to make a strong application. I think is very useful. So, yeah, any questions or comments for Sam?
Yeah, Garrett, go ahead. Did you want to type or talk?
I can just speak. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Sounds good. So yeah, I was debating whether to go to Japan or Korea, but I think I've settled on Japan. I was wondering, I think for Korea they were suggesting you get like a TESOL or TEFL certificate. Was that necessary for Japan as well?
It is not necessary in terms of a hard point requirement, but it does help strengthen your application. It's kind of like teaching experience or having Japanese language ability. For the ALT role, none of that stuff is a hard point requirement, but it does make your application stronger. And one other thing I wanted to mention about the reference letters, I sort of touched on it, but I wanted to go just a little bit more detail, which was that ideally it is someone who knows you well and can speak to your qualities and really give detailed reasons and examples as to why they think you'd be a good JET. There are some applicants we've seen with reference letters that are just like one paragraph like this. This person worked here, I recommend them. And you're sitting there going, well, why? So make sure they know you well. But yes, TESOL, TEFL, if you get that, great. It's not absolutely necessary. We have lots of successful people that don't have that, but it will help you sort of stand out a little bit more from the other applicants. But definitely a good one. Annika or Anika.
Annika, yeah, you had it right.
Okay.
So if you are, successful and you do it for a year, do they help at all with like if you need to reapply for a visa or anything?
Oh yeah. So the jet visa that we issue for people that are successful is a 3-year instructor's visa. So even if you only stay 1 year or 2 years, it's fine. And then even if you want to stay for the full 5 years, that would mean that you'd get to the end of that 3-year term on the visa. They will help you with the visa renewal process. Claire, the Council of Local Authorities and International Relations, will help you with that. And also just, talk to the other jets and talk to your supervisor about, hey, my visa is going to expire soon. Do you know who I need to talk to renew it and stuff? And on the subject of visas, we will help you. The consulate will basically take care of the whole thing for you. All we need is you to fill out the application form and bring in your passport with some photos to stick on the application form, and we'll take care of the rest. So you don't need to worry about very much. Garrett, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was also wondering, so I think I might want to go with my girlfriend. Is there any way we could like request to go to the same area?
Yeah, so you can definitely, if like, I assume she's gonna apply as well to be a jet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, absolutely. And we've had that a lot. Almost every year we have at least a few couples and that are boyfriend and girlfriend, and you can put in a placement request on your application form. And this can be for any reason. It can be, oh, because I heard about this famous thing, or I like the scenery here, or I hope to be in the same placement as my girlfriend or boyfriend or my partner, whoever it is. And they will try to grant that request. It's more likely that they will grant it for people that are married. But even just like a more casual couple, that they'll try, but we can't guarantee that you'll be in the same placement. And so that's something to think about. So I would recommend that anyone that is a couple and they're both planning on applying, that's totally fine, but just have a couple of contingency scenarios in mind. So think about the possibility of 1, I get in and she doesn't, 2, she gets in and I don't, or 3, she's a shortlist and I'm an alternate, or I'm a shortlist and she's an alternate, or we both get in and one's in Hokkaido, the other one's in Okinawa. So is that going to be okay? What's your plan for dealing with it? Think about all this stuff and have some ideas of how you're going to handle it. It's completely fine, just as long as you have a realistic idea and a plan for what you're going to do in all of those different possible situations that could happen. Yeah, it's a very common one, and definitely something to give some thought to. Garrett, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I do. So I was wondering, if I were to do that, should I select the same cities, or would I just say any city will do as long as it's with my girlfriend? And lastly, sorry, just one more connected is, would there be a greater chance if we picked like a more rural location as our preferred place? Or
Okay, yeah, good questions. So for the first one, I would recommend picking a specific city, because then you pick that city, your girlfriend picks that city, and then in the reason why you say, I want to be in the same placement as my relationship partner, right? And then of course expect the panel to grill you on that, like what if you get placed somewhere else, and have an answer for that potential scenario. So that to ensure the greatest chance, I would say you and your girlfriend look at the map of Japan, pick somewhere that you both like, and then hope that you both get that. And to the second part, I would say yes, there is a better chance that you'll both be able to get the same placement if you do pick a more rural placement, because that is where the majority of ALTs are needed. That's where the majority of placements are. If you both pick Tokyo, can't guarantee that that would happen, or somewhere like Fukuoka or Osaka or something like that, like those big cities. Not as likely as if you were to pick, Monbetsu, Hokkaido, or I don't know, like Oitaken or something like that. Yeah, Annika, go ahead.
Sorry. How necessary is it to have a car?
It will depend on if you are in an area that requires driving. So I can't really give a general answer. If you need one, they will tell you ahead of time. It won't be like one of those things that you get there and you find out, oh, I need to drive. Oh, shoot. So on the subject of driving, first thing, if you hear from your predecessor or your CO that, yes, we're going to have a car lease for you, or you're going to drive your predecessor's car, whatever, get yourself an international driving permit and try to get that as close to the time that you leave as possible, because it's valid from the date you get it, not the date you enter Japan. I have a fun story about that later, if we have time. But get that, it's valid for a year, and then you will need to get, if you stay longer than that, you're willing to get a Japanese driver's license. And the good thing about that is for Canadians, yay, we don't have to do the road test. We just have to go to the Japanese equivalent of the DMV, fill out some paperwork, explain to them how you got your license, and then they will do the process and translate your license and give you your Japanese one. And you get your Canadian one back, obviously. But make sure to plan that in advance. It does take time. Okay, Derek.
Hi. I was just wondering if there's a like a list of the like cities and places that you could be at.
Oh, there might be one on the Jet Canada site, but in general, you could pretty much assume that you could be placed anywhere in Japan. Like I say, all the way from Hokkaido to Okinawa and just about anywhere in between. I think all of the prefectures in Japan have at least a few ALTs, if not a lot in some cases. So just assume that you could be anywhere. Oh, just a thing in the chat about international driver's license without a car. Yeah, like you may or may not need to drive. If you're in a larger city with lots of transit, then you probably won't. If you're in a more rural area with less transit, like I was in Nagasaki, in Unzen, which is a very small countryside town, then probably I did need to drive. But I would say 2/3 or more of jets don't drive because they don't need to. They just take the train or a bike, or they walk or something like that. And we kind of started at like 11:05, so I'd be okay to stick around till like 12:05 if people want to. Oh, okay, another class, but all right, yeah.
A quick question for you, Sam. So, I mean, people in my field, in teaching, like some of them are former Jets, and I, had that opportunity as well. Do you see Jets going into different various fields after the experience? Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you can maybe speak to, people's trajectories beyond the Jet experience.
Yeah, like it's we do sort of tout it as a great stepping stone into the next phase of your career, and it's important to think of it like that. And yeah, we see people, like I personally know Jet alumni that are, university professors, or there's one that is currently an RCMP officer.
Oh,
There's an MLA in Lethbridge that was a former Jet participant. And just other jobs as well. There's Jets in all sorts of jobs in the Southern Alberta chapter that I know of. In the Northern Alberta chapter, we've got, one of the co-chairs of the Northern Alberta chapter works for a credit union. So all different types of walks of life are possible if in terms of leveraging your Jet experience. And going along with that, it's good you brought that up. I would suggest for everyone that's thinking about applying is take some time to think about how you're going to leverage your JET experience, because you're going to get Japanese language and culture knowledge, teaching experience. How is that going to translate to where you want to go next with your career? Give that some thought and think about how the JET experience is going to fit into your overall career to make sure that it is really the best thing for you to do right after university. There's a fair number of JETs who go and they don't give that any thought, and then they come to the end of their time on JET and they're kind of going, now what? So not to say that it's limited, it's definitely not. Like I say, there's all different types of JET alumni that I know that are doing all different kinds of really great things, but give that some thought as well. That's a very, very good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's great advice. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, thanks so much. This is so informational and great advice. And I'll definitely share the recording with my students, and yeah, we'll make that available to people at U of L.
Yeah, I could, if anyone has any like last questions, I could probably answer maybe one or two more.
This is just like a hypothetical question, kind of like, let's say that you two, the partners in the relationship did apply for the JET program. Let's say one didn't get accepted, but yet regardless, they want to come anyways. Is that something that they would consider, or is that something that is like, just because even if they're like living cohorts, you know, like
Well, there's nothing against like, okay, the contracting organization will set up a living arrangement for you. However, you do not have to take what they give for you. You can say, no, I want to live somewhere else. And you're free to do that, but then they can only do so much for you in terms of helping you. They can suggest places that you can rent somewhere else. So like if they set up a single apartment for you, but you want to have your partner come, you can say, no, thank you, I'm going to find my own place. And they'll say, okay, well, here's these people. You can help, you can apply to them, but there's no guarantee that they'll grant you your regular contract and stuff like that, but you can do that. And the only other thing is, if the partner that is coming is not like a married partner, we can't provide any support in terms of like a dependent visa or anything like that. And so they'll kind of have to find their own way. They'll have to apply for their own visa. They'll have to find their own employment and stuff like that. But if they've got a plan and they're going to do it and they'll be okay, then yeah, there's no rule that says you can't have them come to Japan their own way and live with you as employed by somebody else. That's totally fine. It's just they have to figure that out, and there's not much that we can do to help. For married partners, let's say one person applies and they get in and they want to say, I want to bring my spouse as a dependent, we can help with that. We can have a dependent visa issued for them. But if they're not your married spouse, then there's not much we can do in terms of helping them. There's nothing that says they can't do it, though.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you so much.
Annika, yeah, go ahead.
With health insurance, do they help with, or do you guys help with setting that up, or is that?
Yes. So all participants are entered into JET accident insurance, and also in general, as a civil servant employed by the Board of Education or city office, you are provided health insurance. That's part of the taxes that you pay and stuff like that. And they give you a health insurance card so that medical expenses are at least partially covered. It's not completely covered like in Canada, but mostly covered. So you will have assistance there as well. Okay, I don't want to keep you guys too long. If you do have more questions later, probably the best way to reach out would be to the mcgraw.samuel email. I think Gideon should be able to hand out, he can hand out that to anyone who wants to email me directly, or you can call to the Calgary Jet Desk And if it's an in-office day for me, I'll be able to answer things there. But I want to let you guys head off to other classes or other things. And I'll just say thanks so much for having me. It's really nice to reach out and connect. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks again, Sam, for a very informative and supportive session. And I'm sure you'll be speaking to some of these folks, yeah, soon.
I hope so.
Good luck with it. Good
Hope
luck
to
to
see
everybody
all
as
of
well.
these names on the application list.
That's right.
All right.
Okay.